Welcome to the channel as we start another story from the Creepy Tales playlist. In the darkness, stories take shape. Some are whispered from the shadows. Others echo from places you should never go. These are the echoes of the unknown. Tales of horror, suspense, and fear that lingers. Because sometimes the scariest stories are the ones you can't explain. The ones you don't want to know exist. Let's begin. The mountain road wound endlessly through the mist, pale headlights carving thin, ghostly beams through the swirling fog. Daniel gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles pale against the leather. The darkness pressed against the windows, the thick pines rising like twisted shadows on either side. "Daniel, we should be there by now," Emily whispered, her voice tense. She leaned forward, staring at the GPS screen. The blue route line showed them on the main road, a straight path to the lookout. But the road stretched on, twisting, looping, the same sharp turns, the same leaning trees. "I don't get it. We've been driving for an hour," Daniel muttered, his voice cracking. The mist thickened, twisting in pale, ghostly tendrils across the windshield. The radio crackled, the static a faint, rhythmic pulse. Emily's fingers dug into the armrest. Maybe we should call someone." Daniel nodded, his jaw clenched. But the darkness seemed thicker now, the mist pressing against the glass, swirling like pale, ghostly fingers. Emily's hands trembled as she unlocked her phone, the screen a faint, ghostly glow against the darkness. The bars flickered, one then none. But then a faint signal returned. 911, what is your emergency? "We're lost!" Emily's voice cracked, panic seeping into her words. "We're on Hollow Peak Road, but it's like it doesn't end. We've been driving for hours. Ma'am, please remain calm. Can you confirm your location?" The dispatcher's voice was steady, but faint, crackling through static. "We're on the main road," Emily gasped. "But it just keeps going. The GPS says we're here, but..." Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel, his eyes wide, sweat beading on his forehead. The mist was thicker now, pressing against the windshield. The trees seemed to lean closer, twisted shadows rising like clawed fingers. "Ma'am, I need you to stay calm. Can you pull over?" But the road stretched on, endless. The mist twisted, curling across the hood. The call crackled, static, a faint, rhythmic hum pressing against the line. Then silence. The dispatcher stared at the call log, her fingers cold against the keyboard. The GPS pinged Daniel and Emily's location, right on the main road, but the signal blinked, then vanished. Sheriff's Deputy Carter climbed into his cruiser, his radio crackling as he called out. "Base, this is Carter. I'm en route to Hollow Peak. I'll run the length." His headlights cut through the swirling mist, the narrow road twisting between the dark, leaning pines. The trees seemed to press closer, their shadows stretching across the road. He drove slowly, his eyes scanning the edges for tire tracks, a flash of metal, anything. But the road stretched on, the mist thickening. His radio crackled again, static, faint, a slow, rhythmic hum. He turned the dial, but the noise grew louder, a thick, distorted drone pressing against his ears. "Base, this is Carter. I've run the whole pass. No sign of the vehicle." Back at the station, the dispatcher's voice was a thin, desperate whisper. "But they called from this road." By morning, a full search was underway. Rangers combed the mountain pass, their flashlights weak, pale beams swallowed by the mist. Drones buzzed overhead, their cameras scanning the twisting cliffs, the dense forest, the steep, rocky drop-offs. But there was nothing, no skid marks, no broken branches, no trace of a crash. Just the pale, swirling mist clinging to the cliffs, pressing against the trees. Carter walked the roadside, his boots crunching against the damp gravel. His radio crackled, the dispatcher's voice thin. "Carter, are you sure they're not here?" He stared at the twisting road, the mist twisting like pale smoke. "They're not. I don't understand." Emily's parents arrived at the station, their faces pale, their voices cracking. "You have to find them. Please, they just got married. They wouldn't just disappear." The sheriff tried to reassure them, but his own eyes flicked nervously to the mountain map, the twisting, looping road that seemed endless. A week passed. The search expanded, rangers pushing deeper into the mist-shrouded forest, rappelling down the steep cliffs, scanning the ravines. Bloodhounds sniffed an article of Emily's clothing, their noses pressed to the ground. But the dogs whined, pulling back, their tails between their legs. Deputy Carter sat at his desk, staring at the call log. The GPS signal had been clear, right on the main road. But there was nothing. His fingers tapped against the desk, a slow, nervous rhythm. He dreamed of the mountain road, dark, twisting, the mist pressing against his windshield. He was driving, his hands tight on the wheel, but the road stretched on, endless. The trees leaned closer, their twisted branches clawing at the sky. He woke in a cold sweat, his breath a faint mist. But then his phone rang, the dispatcher's voice tense. "Carter, the lookout! You need to see this." He drove, his headlights carving pale beams through the fog. The mist twisted around the car, thick and pale. And there, at the overlook, Daniel and Emily's car sat, neatly parked, clean, and empty. Deputy Carter stepped out of his cruiser, the cold mountain air biting against his cheeks. The mist clung to the overlook, pale tendrils twisting across the gravel. Daniel and Emily's car sat perfectly parked, clean, undamaged, its silver paint catching the weak gray light. "It wasn't here yesterday," whispered the dispatcher, who had driven up behind him. Her eyes were wide, her breath a faint mist. Carter's flashlight beams swept over the car, tires clean, no mud on the undercarriage, no scratches on the doors. He tried the handle, locked. Through the window, the seats were neatly arranged. A half-empty water bottle sat in the cup holder. Emily's phone rested on the dashboard, dark and dead. The wind stirred, cold and sharp, the mist swirling around their feet. "Who parked it here?" the dispatcher whispered. "No one. The road's been watched," Carter whispered back. But even as he spoke, his gaze drifted to the edge of the cliff, the darkness beyond the mist a thick, empty void. But the mist twisted, curling beneath the car, pressing against the tires like pale, ghostly fingers. Carter retrieved his lock tool, the metal slipping between the door frame and the seal. A faint click, and the lock popped. The door swung open with a faint creak, cold air rushing out. He leaned inside, his flashlight beam cutting across the interior. The seats were perfectly arranged, no dirt, no signs of a struggle. The water bottle was fresh, beads of condensation clinging to the plastic. Emily's phone was cold, its battery dead. But the floor mats were clean, no mud, no ash, no leaves. It was as if the car had never left a clean showroom. His fingers brushed the glove compartment, maps, neatly folded. A pack of gum unopened. A pair of sunglasses. And then he saw it, Daniel's phone, tucked beneath the seat. The screen was cracked, the battery dead. A faint, thin scratch ran across the glass, a jagged, twisting line. Carter's breath trembled. His fingers brushed against the cold plastic. The mist outside seemed thicker, pressing against the windows. Back at the station, Carter connected Daniel's phone to a charger. The screen flickered, the battery icon a faint, ghostly red. His fingers tapped nervously against the desk as the phone booted up. Photos filled the gallery. Daniel and Emily smiling, selfies against misty mountain views, their hands intertwined. But his gaze drifted to the call log, the last outgoing call, 911. A faint chill twisted through him. He tapped the audio file. Static hissed, a faint, garbled crackle. But beneath it, a voice. Emily's voice. Frantic, cracking. "We're lost. The GPS says we're on the road, but..." The static rose, a thick, rhythmic hum pressing against the recording. Another voice cut in, Emily's again, but slow, distorted. "We're on the road, but we're not. The static roared, then a thin, faint whisper, like dozens of overlapping voices, clawing through the noise. Then silence. The file ended. Carter's breath came in short, sharp gasps. The mist outside the station seemed thicker, curling against the window. That night, Carter couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the whispering static clawing at his thoughts. We're not. The voice was faint, distorted, pressing against his ears. Finally, he grabbed his keys, his flashlight, and drove. The mountain road twisted beneath his headlights, the mist swirling like pale smoke, thick and suffocating. The overlook appeared through the fog, a pale, ghostly clearing. Daniel and Emily's car still sat there, perfectly parked, silent, its windows dark. Carter stepped out, his boots crunching against the gravel. The wind stirred, cold and sharp. Daniel? Emily? He called, his voice swallowed by the mist. Silence. But then he heard it, a faint rhythmic hum. Low, pulsing, pressing against his ears. He spun, his flashlight beams slicing through the fog. But the mist was empty, only the twisting, pale tendrils drifting through the trees. The hum grew louder, a slow, steady pulse that seemed to press against his chest. He stepped back, his breath a faint mist. But the darkness beyond the overlook seemed thicker, pressing closer. Morning came gray and cold, a thin, pale mist clinging to the trees. A full search was launched again, rangers combing the overlook, their dogs sniffing the ground, their handlers calling out. Carter watched, his fingers tight around his radio. The mist twisted, swirling around the treetops, a pale, ghostly cloud. One of the rangers waved him over. Carter, look at this. Tracks, bare, twisting tracks, pressed deep into the damp earth behind the car. They led away from the overlook, winding toward the trees. But they stopped suddenly, just beyond the tree line. No struggle. No broken branches. No continuation. It's like they just stopped walking. One of the rangers whispered, his voice thin. The dogs sniffed at the ground, then whined, pulling back, their tails between their legs. The wind stirred, sharp and cold. Carter's radio crackled, a faint, rhythmic hum pressing against the static. He stared at the empty space beyond the last track. His breath was a faint mist. But the mist thickened, curling through the trees. The searchers retreated from the overlook, their voices hushed, their flashlights pale against the thickening mist. Carter's breath came in slow, trembling gasps. The bare tracks that led nowhere twisted in his mind, a chill sinking into his bones. That night, he sat at his desk, staring at the distorted audio file from Daniel's phone. We're not. The voice was faint, layered, Emily's voice, but wrong. Slow, distorted, like an echo clawing through thick static. He tried to sleep, but his dreams were tangled, feverish. He drove the mountain road, dark, twisting, the mist pressing against his windshield. The radio crackled, a thick, rhythmic hum, and shadows shifted in the fog. He tried to turn, but the wheel locked. The trees leaned closer, their twisted branches clawing at the glass. He woke gasping, his sheets damp, his chest cold. But even awake, the hum seemed to linger, faint, pressing against his ears. Unable to sleep, Carter returned to the station, the mist swirling outside the windows, thick and pale. Daniel and Emily's car sat in the lot, locked and silent, dew clinging to the windshield. He unlocked the door, his flashlight beam cutting through the interior. Everything was as it had been, seats perfectly arranged, the half-empty water bottle, the maps neatly folded. But he opened the glove compartment, his fingers trembling. And there, tucked beneath the sunglasses, he found a small, folded note. His breath caught. He unfolded it, the paper cold and smooth. Scrawled and hurried, jagged writing were the words. It's not the road, it's the mist. We're not alone. Carter's pulse hammered. He stumbled back, the note slipping from his fingers. His gaze drifted to the windshield, pale mist twisting against the glass, curling like ghostly fingers. The whisper was louder now, a slow, rhythmic hum pressing against his ears. Desperation clawed at him. Carter drove back up to the overlook, his headlights pale, weak beams swallowed by the twisting mist. The mountain road stretched, endless, the darkness pressing against the windshield. But he couldn't stop. His fingers gripped the wheel, his breath a faint mist against the cold air. The whisper was louder now, a rhythmic drone that seemed to thrum against his chest. The overlook appeared through the fog, a pale, ghostly clearing. Daniel and Emily's car was gone, but the mist twisted, thick and swirling. Carter stepped out, his flashlight beam trembling. "Daniel! Emily!" he shouted, his voice cracking. Silence. The mist twisted, curling around his legs, pressing against his face. But then, just beyond the trees, he saw them, two pale figures standing at the cliff's edge. "Emily!" he called, stumbling forward. But they didn't move. Their faces were pale, empty, their eyes dark. His flashlight beam flickered, stuttering. Carter's pulse raced, his voice a faint, desperate rasp. "Emily? Daniel?" The two figures turned, their faces pale, empty, eyes dark and hollow, their mouths slightly open. But they didn't speak. They stood in the mist, twisted shadows pressing around them. Carter's knees trembled. What happened to you?" he whispered. But their faces twisted, faint, distorted, like reflections on dark water. The mist thickened, pressing against his chest, his breath a faint mist. He stepped back, his boots slipping against the cold gravel. The whisper was a thick, rhythmic drone now, clawing at his ears. And then they moved, stepping forward, but their bodies twisted, pale mist curling around their limbs, their faces blurring. Carter's flashlight beam flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed them. But the whisper grew louder, a slow, hungry hum that seemed to claw at his mind. Morning came pale and gray, the mist lifting, the mountain road twisting through the thin light. Rangers searched the overlook, their boots crunching against the gravel. Carter's cruiser was there, neatly parked, the door closed. But he was gone. His flashlight lay on the ground, its beam dark. His radio crackled faintly, static clawing at the silence. And just beyond the mist, in the damp earth, bare, twisted tracks led away, winding toward the trees, then vanishing. The sheriff called off the search. The mountain road was empty, the mist a thin, ghostly shroud clinging to the treetops. But that night, as the dispatcher filed her reports, her phone rang, an unknown number. Her fingers trembled as she answered. Static. Then a faint, rhythmic hum. And beneath it, a voice, faint, distorted, twisted with static. Carter's voice. We're not, it's not over." The call ended. The mist thickened outside the window, pressing against the glass. And somewhere beyond the mountain, the darkness stretched, endless. Next time you're home all alone, and you hear those things that go bump in the night, sometimes they are best left alone.